Just this other morning, I was standing at the school gate with a few other moms. We had just watched our children walk into the school through the gate. You know how that feels, right? Everyone just starts to exhale just a little. Then I watched a very interesting conversation unfold between two moms. One mom asks the other how her daughter is adjusting to first grade. The other mom answers that her daughter struggles with separation, as so many kids do. But she attributed it to the fact that she stayed home quite a bit rather than returning to work. Now, the logic behind her thinking was that her daughter got so used to her presence, so used to being with her, that it was a shock to go to school and to watch mommy walk away, to have mom leave. She said that she didn't have the luxury to do that with her son, her second child, and that she believes that he is much more independent. Now, the other mom firmly disagreed. Oh, I think the more time that we spend with our children those early years, the better. I really believe it's made all the difference for my daughter, she said. It wasn't unkind, but suddenly the air felt thicker. The working mom of two retorted that it all has to do with how life is set up nowadays. She said that most people can't avoid going back to work as soon as possible, even when their children are just infants. To which the other mom said, "We are the ones who shape our lives." It felt really tense and uncomfortable for me, to be honest. I automatically got into mediator mode because I could feel for both of them and I could understand what each of them was trying to say. Each person's circumstances are different. Kids do not come to this earth as clean slates. We guide them, yes, but we're not God Almighty. Their idiosyncrasies are their own. As we took our separate ways, this whole thing got me thinking. How often do we defend our parental choices, not because we truly just want to convince others, but because we are trying to convince ourselves? That is what we're exploring today. Why we defend, why we feel judged, and how a little bit of self-compassion can change everything. Hi there. If this is your first time here, welcome to the Parenthood and Relationship Podcast. I'm your host, Markella Kaplani, a psychologist, a parenthood and relationship coach, and a parent myself. Together, we explore the transformative journey of parenthood and its profound impact on our relationship with ourselves, our partners, and our children so that we can be present and show up as we envision without having to do more. Let's get into today's episode. Here's the thing. Most of the time, other parents aren't talking about you. They are talking about themselves. Parental guilt, mom guilt in this case, has a way of leaking into conversations. It doesn't always sound like, "I'm a bad mom." More often, it sounds like defensiveness. "I could never do that." Or, "This is just not for me." Or, "I don't understand how people manage that." But underneath that, there's insecurity. The mom who says, "I could never stay home," might just be saying, "I'm afraid to lose myself if I did," and what that would mean for my children. The mom who says, "I would never go back to work," she might be saying, "I am terrified that my child would feel abandoned." Both of these are truths. Both of these are born out of love, but both of them are also rooted in fear. I'll give you another quick vignette. A mom I worked with told me just how crushed she felt when a friend of hers said, "Wow, I could never leave my baby with someone else that young." This mom had just gone back to work 3 months postpartum. She wasn't angry at her friend, but her heart sank. She told me, "It was like she voiced the very thing I already feared." And that is the key. These comments don't wound us because they're objectively mean. They wound us because they echo our own inner critic. That is why sometimes you can shrug a comment off, and other times it cuts you to your core. It depends on whether it touched a bruise that's already there. And here is where we get to talk about matrescence again. If you're new to that term, if you're new to this channel, you haven't heard me talk about it, well, matrescence is like adolescence, but instead of the identity shift of becoming an adult, this is about the identity shift of becoming a mother. During matrescence, all of our roles get rearranged. Who we are to ourselves, who we are in our career, who we are in our relationship, and who we are in our family. So, of course, every choice feels charged. Of course, a comment about staying home or working goes deeper than logistics. It is not just about the schedule, it's about identity. And identity feels tender. Because if I am not, quote unquote, enough in this role, what does that say about me as a whole person? This is why I always say, parenting choices are not just about parenting. They are about selfhood. They define us. So how can we move out of this defensiveness if this is so common and so normal in a way? How do we soften that sting of parental guilt, of mom guilt? The answer is self-compassion. When you meet yourself with kindness, other people's choices stop feeling like threats. Their path can be different without destabilizing yours. Let me give you 3 small practices. Number 1, name the insecurity. When you feel judged, pause and ask, what insecurity of mine just got poked? Maybe it's, I worry I am not contributing. Or, I'm afraid I am not patient enough. Naming it brings it to light. Number 2 is to reframe the comment. Instead of hearing, she's criticizing me, or she thinks she's better than me, try thinking, she is narrating her own fear. It's her story, not your evaluation. Number 3, offer yourself a compassionate statement. Speak to yourself like you would to your child, to a friend. You're safe. You're enough. Your way is valid. Over time, these small steps build resilience, and they change not just how you treat yourself, but how you see other moms. Comparison turns to curiosity. Judgment turns into compassion. So let's return to these 2 moms, these 2 women, these 2 choices, 2 truths. One said, I couldn't stay home. And it could have been the finances, it could have been just the need to be fulfilled. But that was met with a sort of judgment, with a, you could have chosen differently, you could have done better. And that is because she felt a sting of her own, about whether maybe her own daughter's difficulty with separation might be attributed to the fact that she has given her essence to her daughter. Because that is the case. That is what she shared. She didn't mean to be incompassionate. Underneath it all, both of them were really saying the same thing. I love my child, my children. I want to do right by them, to provide, to be there. And I need to believe that my way is okay. And maybe that is the reminder for all of us. There isn't one right way. There are many ways, and it is all relevant to our own personal histories and our family of origin and our current financial situation and so many other things. So it's too nuanced to judge someone on their definition of providing and protecting one's children. You know, none of these moms were wrong. And if you're asking me personally, I think that both of them care very deeply. You can't put yourself in someone else's place. You are looking at things from your own perspective. The one mom had no idea, and I didn't either, what it is that the other was going through. Does she have assistance? Does she have someone to be able to take care of her children? Does she have financial freedom and she's choosing her career? And even if so, that would be okay too. But how do we know that her going back to work earlier this time wasn't a necessity so that she can provide? How do we know that it wouldn't lead to desperation and depression that would then trickle onto the children? On the other hand, how do we know that the other mom has given way too much? Can we assume that we know how she parents? Can we assume that she has self-sacrificed and she is sabotaging her child's independence? Or can we assume the opposite, that because she spent so much time, she ultimately made her more independent? The studies say so, but there are so many variables that go into this. Just being present there with your child doesn't mean you're doing everything right just because you're there. You could be promoting codependence. So everything is relative. It really, really is. There is no right and wrong way, at least not until we know all the details, all the facts, everything is out in the open. And trust me, in these conversations where parents gather and they share these snippets, we get less than 10% of the picture, and we give each other less than 10% of the opportunity to share before we make a judgment. So do keep that in mind. What you hear is not about you. Protect yourself from feeling that disappointment, that pit in your stomach that you're doing something wrong just because someone else across from you seems to feel okay doing the exact opposite, seems to feel like they've made a good parenting choice. They really may have made a great parenting choice for them, for their situation, and for their children. And just because it could be amazing for their children and they could be raising great humans the way that they are choosing to go, does not mean that because you're choosing to go differently, that your children are lacking something or they won't turn out to be good humans because, well, if you're going left and I'm going right, we can't both be doing the thing that's best for our children. But what if we are? If you're asking me as Markella, the mom, as Markella, the psychologist, what I am going to tell you is this. Yes, the more we can be there for our children in the early years is very valuable. But it's not as simple as that. What does it mean to be there for them? If I am going to be there for my son, but my mind is elsewhere, if I am drowning in worry about the finances and how we're going to make it the next day, if I am arguing with my partner because I feel unsupported and I feel like I'm stuck in four walls and I've lost myself, if I am going stir crazy, maybe finances aren't an issue, but I'm going stir crazy and I can't bear it. And it comes out in tension and in anger that maybe I suppress, maybe I don't, but either way, my child gets that energy. Now, is that the best? I don't know. So yes, stay at home as much as possible, but considering, am I going to be all right? I could bear through the emotional strain, the mental load, the financial worries, whatever it is, the social pressure to stay or to not stay, because there's both of those. A lot of times, we parents, and especially moms, find ourselves in a place where we say, it is possible. But it is possible often comes with, I can power through. And powering through has a cost. We lie to ourselves when we say that this cost doesn't come across to my children, because it does. As much as you may be hiding it, as good as you may be at having a poker face, this impacts your children. So, just because you can, doesn't mean you should. And just because research shows that one thing might be a little bit better than the other, or maybe significantly better than the other, it is not the full picture. Because research also says that children do better with parents who are verbally abusive in comparison to parents who are disengaged completely. Let that sink in for a little. I could be present, but I could be completely disengaged because I'm very anxious about the future, because I am bordering on depression, or maybe I am depressed. And that could be harming my child more than if I were less present, or than if I were more engaged, even if that were with anger intention. If we put in all the facts and all the studies, if you want to take this at an empirical level, there is no perfect choice. There is no manual to parenting. It has to be about what is right for your family, with your circumstances, with your history, with the way that your relationship is shaped with yourself, with the way that your relationship works with your partner or your ex, right? If you're a single parent. There are so many things that go into the mix that the ideal for you and your children could be completely different from the ideal for me and my children. And that's okay. Both of them could turn out perfectly well. I think that is the mindset shift that we need to have. Not necessarily to be more compassionate to others, although personally I would love to see that. But first and foremost, so that we can live with ourselves and our choices and take a breath, not hold this weight of burden and guilt and shame and worry that we're not doing the best for our children. That is just so heavy to carry. And we need to slowly open that suitcase and start taking things out. So many things that we carry are unnecessary and we're not going to use them. So let's unload together. The key takeaway here is this. The more compassion we can show for ourselves, the less we will feel like we need to defend our choices, and the more compassion we'll have for each other. If today's episode resonated with you, I would love to offer you a few resources to go deeper. If you are feeling the sting, if you are interested in learning more about how our identity changes and why we feel guilt in motherhood, you are going to love my Matrescence series. It's a mini video series that you receive in your email, a mini course on what matrescence is, how it affects us women, and how we can break free from the guilt and the shame and all the things that are holding us down so we can mother more freely. But you may also like my Calm Parent, Calm Child guide, which is full of tools to help you regulate yourself so that you can co-regulate with your child. And if you're looking for a way to connect with yourself, understanding that certain things that may be tough in parenthood have to do with things that you carry from the past, you may enjoy the Self-Connect calendar, which gives you a month's worth of things that you could do in order to connect with yourself, minding that they are very short, very to the point, so that you can actually apply them without feeling guilty over that too, that you don't have time to connect with yourself, to work on yourself in order to be the best parent you can be. Oh, and one last thing. If you have been enjoying this podcast, you will find that my newsletter, the Sunday Reconnect, accompanies it very well. Each week, I share one insight, one tool, and one 3-minute reset to help you feel closer to yourself, to your partner, and all your loved ones. And for those of you who reach out and wonder how you can show your appreciation for this work, you can support and honor me by leaving a review wherever you listen to your podcast. It helps other parents find their way here, and it means the world to me. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the messy, beautiful work of parenting with heart. And remember, you're already doing an amazing job. I'll see you next Sunday. Bye-bye.